Notre prochaine présentation est grâce à Isabelle Archambault du département de l'École de psychoéducation, Université de Montréal. Isabelle est titulaire de la Chaire de recherche du Canada sur l'école, le bien-être des enfants et la réussite éducative et cotitulaire de la Chaire Myriagone McConnell-UdM Université de Montréal en mobilisation des connaissances en contexte jeunesse. Ancrés dans une perspective de justice sociale, ces travaux sont reconnus pour leurs retombées sur le développement des meilleures pratiques permettant de soutenir les enfants avec des besoins particuliers, dont ceux issus de milieux défavorisés, issus de l'immigration ou présentant des problèmes de santé mentale.
Hi everyone, allow me to introduce myself as a psychoeducator and a researcher in psychoeducation. Psychoeducation is a discipline unique to Quebec that aims to prevent adaptation difficulties and intervene with people presenting such difficulties in contexts such as family and school in order to help them achieve a better life balance. This discipline is based on the principle that one psychosocial adjustment is the result of the interaction between his or her potential or internal resources and his or her experiences, namely the resources and opportunities offered by the environment. As such, the environment constantly needs to change and adapt to better meet the individual needs. In the school context, psychoeducation seeks to better understand how school actors can adjust their practices in order to provide more adapted solutions to the needs of youth, especially those facing specific challenges. Psychoeducation also aims to identify the optimal conditions to implement in order for best practices to achieve their expected outcomes. My work aims to develop knowledge and improve practices in school as a way to provide a more equitable response to the specific needs of all youth, especially youth living in unprivileged neighborhoods, youth with immigrant backgrounds, or youth facing adaptation or mental health difficulties. Promoting equity in education is therefore one of the central aims of my work. This aim is based on the principles related to social justice and the conviction that youth have the right to equal opportunities to succeed in school and become active citizens who will fully contribute to society. Promoting equity is an aspiration in all education systems. Yet there are major barriers to the implementation of equitable practices in school. The separation of students according to their RSC status, for example, lead to important inequities. Young people do not have all the same opportunities in our schools today. Given the way that schools are organized and run, some youth living in disadvantaged areas with immigrant backgrounds or living with mental health issues are disadvantaged. These youth do not all receive the same rich learning opportunities and supportive measures that some may need to fully engage in school and society. My earlier research, therefore, aimed to study student engagement among youth living in low SES communities. This work illustrated the great heterogeneity in student trajectories. However, we show that school dropout was systematically higher among youth presenting greater disengagement, behaviorally, cognitively, and emotionally. We also found that the affective dimension of youth engagement is by far the most under-investigated one. For secondary school students living in low SES communities, schooling is not always a meaningful experience because schooling does not necessarily respond to their aspirations and needs. This research then led me to study how the development of close relationships between young people and adults in school is so important for youth affective engagement, especially for immigrant youth who have recently moved to Canada. For these youth, teachers can provide critical support in enabling them to better adapt to the functioning of school and society. Besides, for students facing mental health challenges such as anxiety, the predictive effect of teacher warmth is also significant. While for other young people exhibiting oppositional behaviors, classroom structure is more important. This is a reminder of the importance of adopting differentiated approach in schools. Building on my previous work, I next wanted to study the role of school and especially of the intercultural climate within schools. This climate is the result of the interactions and practices that take place between ethnoculturally diverse members of the school community and the characteristics of the school environment. While our results show that relations between students are generally positive, intercultural relations between some groups of students and school staff and between staff members of various ethnocultural backgrounds remain a concern in some schools. The mobilization of school stakeholders in favor of a culture of equity and openness to diversity is also a challenge. It is therefore important for schools and for government to question and act on the exclusionary practices that prevail in certain communities toward minority or racialized groups. This question must also be translated into needs of action and the development of more equitable practices. Through various partnership projects, I therefore also work on the evaluation of different practices, such as mentoring programs offered to students in low SES communities or language and socialization camps for newly arrived immigrant children. The idea is to better understand the best condition for the implementation of more inclusive practices. Certainly, much work remains to reduce the systematic barriers that contribute to accentuating inequities in education. But to allow knowledge to reach school, this knowledge must be accessible, applied, and applicable. Above all, it is central to amplify the voice of young people. With a vision to promote a more socially just society, I also work with the Myriagone Chair in youth and knowledge mobilization. Myriagone, which refers to a polygon with 10,000 sides, is an interdisciplinary chair held by 5 co-holders. Our mission is to create, share, and mobilize knowledge with, by, and for youth. Myriagone aims to listen and to amplify the voices of youth and our partners who support youth. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of youth perspective, and particularly for youth who are more affected by the social and educational inequities in school and in society today. Think of young people without computer or internet access who rely on online courses right now. Think also of newly arrived immigrant youth who now found themselves more isolated and far from their loved ones. Our work since the pandemic started clearly demonstrate the more marked effects of the current crisis on certain youth. To conclude, equity in education means providing all people with access to quality education. This objective can only be achieved by ensuring that scientific knowledge and youth voices are taken into account by government and school. This is a collective challenge that we must achieve for the youth who are the pillars of tomorrow's society. Thank you.